This is the Tapped In Podcast, the podcast for beverage distributors that want to empower their sales team to drive business results. Listen up and welcome back to another episode of the Tapped In Sales Podcast, your podcast for beer distributors by beer distributors. I am your hostess with the mostest, Bud, here with Moneyball Ross and Data Mike. And we're going to take a little break from our regularly scheduled programming. And this was an idea, Ross, that you had inspired and was like, hey, we should really now we're into this. We've been doing this for a while. We haven't talked a lot about our backgrounds. So we're calling this the Origin series. And there'll be a few of these that'll come out that won't be back to back to back. But over the next maybe month or two, we're going to do an episode. Today, Mikey is going first. Mikey's origin story. We're going to get all into the background of Mike, where he came from, how he started the industry, all that good stuff. And just kind of learn a little bit more about each of us on the pod and who those of us who are been regulars as well. So it should be fun today, and I think Mikey, to kind of get it started, we'll just go back where it all started. How do you want to kick it off with your origin story today, my man? Because it is your story.
It was a beautiful fall day in October of 1980.
This is where it all went wrong.
Where it all went wrong. Mikey was born. No. So yeah, my start in the industry, my story is shortly after high school. I never really had a dream of being in the beer industry, although I loved beer. I was going to be a cop. So I wanted to go and get my criminal justice degree and then go through the police academy. And I was going to pay for that all on my own. So the plan was to work for a couple years, make enough money to put my way through college, and then be a police officer for the rest of my life. And so that started off shortly after high school, working in a factory.
That plan failed.
Got sucked right in. And I was driving a forklift in the warehouse, and every day to and from work, I drove past this big, beautiful building that said Budweiser on it, all lit up, because I'd go in as dark. I'd came out when it was dark. And
it's Bud done on the side.
Yeah. Bud,
I was probably like 9.
I wasn't around yet.
This is like 98, I'm sure. 98, 99. And and I told all my coworkers one day, and I was like, you know what? Screw this place. I'm going to go work at Budweiser. And they're like, are they hiring? I'm like, I have no idea, but I want to work there. So I filled out an application, and I didn't hear anything. Not even a call, nothing.
Right on brand.
Right on brand. So I'm like, man, what the heck? And call, they'd somebody will follow up with you. Well, they never did. So then I ended up getting a merchandising job with a competitor. So I was stocking shelves, Miller Lite and Coors Light. And that was my first break into the industry. So boots on the ground, stocking shelves, unloading orders of beer that were coming in, and filling back stock and all that good stuff. I did that for probably about 6 months, and then I started really chatting with the sales reps at Atlas at the Dream Budweiser building. Started to know them, and became friends with Troy Boy. Would see him out on the route a lot. And I told him, I said, man, I applied and I never heard anything. He's like, really? He's like, we're hiring. We need a warehouse person, really bad. We're struggling to find somebody. I'm like, well, what the hell? I didn't even get a phone call. So
it's all Troy right on brand.
Yeah. Gave Troy Boy my number. And a couple of days later, Dale called me. Yeah. So I came in for an interview and got the job. So I left my merchandising position, moved up the ladder to nighttime truck loader. So I worked nights, 10:30, 11 o'clock at night till 6 or 7 in the morning, and loading trucks. And that was great. Did that for about a year, and then moved up to day shift, still under the regime of Dale. And in the warehouse, I started noticing some opportunities, room for improvement within the warehouse.
That was when we met.
Yeah.
And you taught me how to drive a forklift that summer.
Was Dale still there? I tell you, or was I Operations?
Yeah.
That was that summer, huh?
Yeah. But Dale was still around when you taught me how to drive a forklift.
Shufflefoot Dale. And so And I worked days for about a year, unloading trucks, working normal warehouse stuff, and then doing relief routes. So at that time, we had a couple of drivers that
How
loved
old
to.
were you too by this point as well?
So I started merchandising. I was 19. I started, technically full time with Atlas once I became CDL qualified. You have to have a CDL license to be considered full time. And that was August of 2000.
Oh. It was
So,
a
yeah.
union thing, right? We were union shopping. That was part of like joining the union contract officially or whatever.
Yeah, and that was back in the good old days too, because we gave you 90 days to get your CDL. In the good old days, you didn't have to go through the class or anything. You just called up Jim Bob, who was out in the country. Jim Bob would meet you in the parking lot. You pulled your rig in there. Your inspection was maybe 30 minutes. I took mine during an ice storm, so he didn't want to be outside in the cold.
Perfect timing to do it.
Yeah, I'm checking over the truck. I'm doing my walk around inspection. We get to the other side of the truck. He goes, "Just tell me it's the same as the other side, and we're good here." I'm like, "Perfect." So we get in the truck, and it's an ice storm. Roads are slick as hell, man. And we're driving around. He's like, "This is pretty bad out here. Why don't we just head back?" So we head back. He fills out the paperwork, gives me my AOK certificate. Head off to Secretary of State. It's not like that anymore. Now a couple grand.
So many rules.
2 weeks, 3 weeks of school to do it. And so, yeah. So once I did that, then I was full-time August of 2000. So yeah, worked in the warehouse for a while, ran some routes, got out in the market quite a bit. And then when Dale retired, we started taking applications for that. And your mom approached me and she said, "Have you thought about applying for Dale's position?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. What am I, 20, 21 at that point, And I was 21. She said, "Well, I think you should at least, apply. It'll be a good experience for you." So, all right. So here I am, this 21-year-old kid going in an interview up against all these, at that point, grown-ass adults, right? They're coming in applying for operations manager. And I came in with my booklet, and it was like this.
Do you know who else had applied?
Yeah. Bob Reichert. I mean, I don't know who all applied, but when it came down to the interviews, I think they interviewed like 6 people.
Really?
It came down between myself and Bob. We're the 2 final candidates. And
where was Bob at?
I forget what he was doing at that time.
He wasn't at Atlas. I know he wasn't.
No, he wasn't. He was an outsider. I was the only insider, I believe, that applied for it. But yeah, I brought my binder, my booklet of all my notes I had been taking throughout the warehouse of like, hey, we could do this better. We should change this. Why in the hell are we doing it like this? And ended up getting the job. So at 21, I just turned 22. It was like January when I made the switch, and running our warehouse, operations manager. So that was kind of a scary moment. But
gotta love it.
Yeah, and there I was almost.
What were some of the things you wanted to do different? Do you remember?
Oh, man. Gosh, I don't even remember now looking back.
Fire the kid who was running the can crusher in the summertime. That was probably first.
That part came a little bit later. I don't remember. It was mostly all about efficiencies and how we were doing things and what we were doing. And yeah, it'd be great if I still had that book. Go back.
Yes, it would be.
Yeah. But yeah. And then now here I am, the youngest one on the team, managing people that have been there for 10 years at least. Some of our drivers at that point, most of our drivers at that point had been around for 20 years. So I had to gain respect first. And that had to come pretty early in that portion of my career. And once that happened, then we started making a bunch of changes within the warehouse. Was ops manager for 10 years.
At least.
What's that? Yeah, I think it was
at least
10 years
long, yeah.
on the dot. But as that career kept rolling along, I started getting more things handed to me, right? Took over forecasting. Took that over from your dad. Started doing forecasting.
That was the best. That was way better.
Yeah, and with forecasting came along ordering the beer for our craft suppliers. And at that point, we really didn't have like a craft manager. Nobody was managing our craft partners. So I started kind of taking the lead on that too. Inventory management. I ran all of our in-house reroutes. I think we had routing team come in the first time, and then the second time we were like, hey, I can do this. So we had their software and we did that. So that would do all of our routing changes and all that good stuff.
Was that RoadNet?
Yeah. Yep, it was RoadNet. It was UPS software to begin with, right? And then
Yeah, I
AB
mean,
bought it. Or
on one hand, it was good software. On the other hand, it was janky as shit.
at the time, it was great software. Looking back, I mean, it was ahead of its time. Now, yeah, it's kind of janky for what we have this day and age, but back then it was great. I mean, that or you sit in a conference room with all the routes laid out, all of your accounts, and just trying to go through it that way by hand. Speaking of, that's how your dad used to route too. I remember the flashcards when he would create his weekly visits. He would put an account name on every flashcard and put them all over the conference room and start organizing them
I
by day.
remember when he would do that too.
Yeah. So if you're still routing like that, let me know. I can help you out. Steer you in the right direction. At least we know some.
If
people.
you still want to route like that, I'll send you to the guy who never stopped doing that.
Oh man. But yeah, and then I started finding myself out in the market a lot. Tommy, our sales manager, would steal.
Did Tommy get promoted to sales manager after you were ops manager?
It was probably 3 to 5 years into me being ops manager. Tommy was promoted from assistant sales manager
to ops sales manager. To sales manager. Yep.
And then we lost the person that was doing all of our special events. That's a side story, but we lost that person and we really didn't have anybody handling special events, and he knew I liked it. So he started putting me in charge of that. And plus I was probably the only one that could back in a draft wagon to some of those locations.
You were qualified because you can back up the draft wagon.
Yeah, that's what made me qualified. But I really liked that. So then I took over our special events and running all that. And then with that came, stealing me go out in the market and doing some selling stuff, especially with on-premise. And then fast forward time, you and Tommy got to talking and
hold on, we're going to slow down. You're flying through this. So we got to back up. We're going to back up a little bit. What was your favorite thing about like when you started in the warehouse, move back all the way back up to there, like being in the warehouse on the night crew?
What was my favorite thing?
Yes.
No supervision. We had zero supervision. There
were 3 of you, right?
3 of us at night. At that point, that was one of the things I did change when I became operations manager, is we made a basically like a team lead for the night crew, lead man for the night crew. That was responsible because there was really nobody responsible. And my second night on the job, and I'm loading beer on a pallet. So I've got the forklift, next to the cases of beer or whatever in the warehouse, and I'm loading my cases on there, and all of a sudden I get hit right in the kidney. And at the same time, I'm like soaking wet, and I can't figure. I'm like, what the fuck is happening? I thought I got hit by a baseball bat. I look over, and the other 2 knuckleheads are laughing their ass off, and they had a case of beer, and they were taking the cans out of it and just chucking them up in the air to get them to land on my forklift and explode, so that they got me all soaking wet with beer. Well, one of them, the cans hit me right in the kidney. That's what that kidney shot was. And then here I am soaked with beer, because if you toss it up at the right angle, it would hit the top of the forklift and just explode all over you. So yeah, that was beer wars. And that's why our breakage was out of control, which was probably also on the list. And at that point, like we had like 1 camera in the CEW, and it's black.
Yeah, there's no cameras in this place.
Black and white. The definition. I mean, you couldn't even make out a forklift driving through the warehouse, so you had no idea what us knuckleheads were doing all night long, right?
Wasn't there a tomato fight, or was that under your operational manager's regime?
Ooh, I don't remember a tomato fight. Just beer fights.
I could be making that up.
Yeah, that would be funny. But no, we had a lot of fun and learning. That was when I really got my feet wet within the business on the operations side too, of just being in there all night. And that warehouse was haunted. It was a newer building. So this is the year of 99, 2000. It was built in 97, I think, when we moved in. And soon my first night, they were like, hey, just so you know, this warehouse is haunted. You're going to see a little boy. Weird shit's going to happen. We can't explain it. And that story, I mean, it always stuck with everybody, but weird shit would happen in that warehouse at night all the time, and on Mondays we didn't, was it Mondays we didn't load trucks, or Fridays?
Fridays we wouldn't have loaded trucks because we didn't deliver Monday.
Yep. So one of the nights we didn't have, we weren't loading trucks. So we would wash all the trucks. We had a separate wash bay. So you'd have to pull around, back them into the wash bay, And then you were in there and you had a power washer and we washed them all. And I was the only one in the CEW one night. And all of a sudden I started hearing, and this is crazy, I started hearing all these voices. Like I'm in a party. Like, I'm like, what the hell's going on? Like it freaked me out. I ran into the wash bay where the other two knuckleheads are in there, you know, smoking cigarettes and washing trucks and having a good old time. And I'm like, dude, I tell them what happened. They're like, you're crazy. I'm like, no, I'm serious. And the one Lance at the time, he was like, yep. He's like, Lance. It's the little boy. He's like, I swear this place was built on like an Indian burial ground or something. He's like, weird shit's going to happen to you. I do remember that. But to answer your question, no, I think my favorite part about nights was just working at my own pace, getting shit done at your own level and really just kind of taking it all in and learning.
And you get promoted then, and now you're in management. You know, we're a union shop, so there is that dichotomy of, you know, management versus labor. Did that take you a minute to kind of figure out, or were you comfortable right away?
No, it took me a minute.
And at the time, our organization had a bad attitude of management versus labor in like an unhealthy way.
Yeah, and it was unhealthy, and it was mostly, and I don't want to pick on the drivers, but it was mostly the drivers because they had all been there for 20 years.
They're divas.
Yeah,
we can pick on them.
Yeah, the oldest driver, the most senior driver at the time, my first morning, so the first night I started, I loaded his truck. They're like, "Oh, you can have JD's truck." I'm like, "All right, cool." They're like, "It's because it's easy." No, it's because JD was an asshole, and he comes in the morning, and here I'm the only one responsible for loading his entire truck. And he goes, "What kind of dipshit motherfucker loaded this truck?" And I'm like, "Oh God." And Lance goes, "Mike, JD wants to see you." This is my first morning ever meeting JD, ever meeting anybody else. I'm like, "Oh, great." So yeah, he just laid into me and, you know, why would we put because we had 40s. Why would we put 40s in a high bay? Why you want me to reach up there and grab those 40s out of this high bay? But no, I think the grind or the disconnect really came from our drivers. Were old school mentality, been around forever, love the union. The union is what protected them. The union is what got them their job. The union is what got them their wages. The warehouse was a younger regime. And we're like, what has the union done for me lately besides take some of my paycheck? You know, so there was that. So I never was all
was like
union,
three
union,
factions.
Union.
Yeah, right. So there were like 3 factions inside of the union.
Yeah. So switching over to management, I mean, I didn't really have that go union. I already had the, hey, we need to kind of be the middleman here because they have this bad taste in their mouth. And we were the theys, you know, I became a they. I went from being
great to be a they.
Yeah.
It's great to be a they.
Mitch, he one morning, I mean, this is a couple of years in, he's like, well, they're doing this and they want to do this. And they said this. And I'm like, well, Mitch, who's they? Well, you know, management. I'm like, so me. I'm a they. I'm right here, buddy. My name is Mike. Were we still going to get beer? Did we still have our big 18-wheelers over the road, or had we stopped doing that by the time? Dad had just stopped. Okay. That was Larry's. I think Larry did that. Mitch did that a lot too, where we'd had to take our own trucks down to Columbus, pick up our own beer, and come back up. But we were getting shipments by then, dedicated trucks.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So you come over, you take over, you're moving up the ranks, you get the promotion. When, you know, anything fun about being in management and on the operations side that you loved the most?
I loved it because, you know, I felt included in a lot of the decision making now. Mm-hmm. I had a voice finally. So that felt great to be included like that and to help really now have a part in steering the ship. And then honestly, just learning so much more about the business. I mean, at that point, 22 years old, I didn't have a ton of experience. So it was not like I'd been out on a route for 5-6 years and then drove a truck for 5 or 6 years and then came in. So learning it from the inside, I guess ground level, right? Working in the warehouse and then really learning it from the management perspective taught me a lot.
Yeah. You started to get on the road then too. You had a little bit of travel here and there. So you started to meet some other folks and see the other parts of the country too, as, you know, operations guy going to some, did you go to your first MBWA then too?
Yeah. I went with your mom and dad.
That's the Vegas story, isn't it?
That's the Vegas story. Is that what you're poking at, bud? Yeah. My first, your mom and dad are like, hey, we want to take you out to NBWA. It's in Vegas. We think you can learn a lot. I'm like, yeah, cool. Sounds great. So here I am, this 21-year-old
I don't
kid.
think we've told the Vegas
22.
story on the pod.
Definitely not. And and so we had a great time, and I did learn a lot, and it was fun. And I linked up with all of our other Michigan wholesalers, and here we are in Vegas and having a great time. And it was like the last night, and I linked up with all the guys from Michigan and playing blackjack and having just a good old time. And ended up going to some bars and then another bar and then here. And time fast forward, and just one more turned into 6 a.m. in Vegas. And I'm like, shit, we're supposed to meet
Final.
Yeah, we're supposed to meet in the lobby to get to the airport at like 7:30 or 8. I think it was 7:30. I'm like, I've got to run. I need to take a shower, pack my stuff, meet Greg and Katie Sue in the lobby. So I ran up to my room, took a shower, and I packed up my stuff, and I sat on my bed because I had a couple of minutes before I needed to meet him there. And then that was it. Lights out. Boom. Mikey was gone. And meanwhile, in the background, Greg and Kathy Sue are wondering, where the hell's Mike? He's not in the lobby. Can't find me. I don't think there were cell phones. I don't think I had a cell phone at that point.
At best, a
highly doubt it. Yeah, highly doubt it. And so they're calling the room, no answer. They're knocking on the door, no answer. So then they're worried about me. So they go and they get security. Well, security comes in my room and wakes me up, and your mom and dad are behind them. And they're like, at this point now, we're super late. We're really late after all of this running around. So they're not exactly happy with me. They're like, let's go. I'm like, oh shit. So I grab them. We're running through the hotel, get in the taxi, fly to the airport. Your mom does what your mom does best. She goes up to security. She's like, we need to get through here right now. We can't wait in this line. We're going to miss our plane. So we get this through security. We run, and we barely make it on the plane. Like, the doors were closing as we walk through. So we get in the plane, and no words were spoken. And that's when I knew. I was like, oh shit, this is probably deeper than I really think.
I'm in trouble.
Not a word was said. 4.5-hour flight home. And we're coming in Detroit. I'm hungover because now what do I have? An hour passed out in the room and maybe a half an hour on the plane. And so then we're coming into Detroit. And just as we're about to make our final approach, we shoot back up in the air. We start circling. I'm like, oh, great. Let's just be home already. So pilot comes on. He was like, yeah, the weather, we've been rerouted to Cleveland. I think it was Cleveland or Cincinnati. Maybe Cincinnati. We've been rerouted to Cincinnati. So then here we go. We're off to Cincinnati. And we're sitting on the tarmac waiting to take back off and go to Detroit, which never happens. I think we were on the tarmac for 2 hours. They finally end up canceling the flight. So then we have to rent a car and drove through the night to get back to Michigan. And that was a 4-hour drive. And I'm like, perfect. I can finally fall asleep in the back seat. And then, nope. Not only was it time to talk about Mikey's bad decision the night before, it was also time to really talk about all the things that I needed to do in the warehouse. And it turned into an employee review for 4 hours on the way home. Hungover, not good, in the car with your mom and dad. And I'd probably been in the position for a year, so yeah, obviously there was
time to do the review.
It's time this is fucked up, and this is what needs to change, and we need to be doing this, and all the way home.
See, this is what happens when you don't have an HR department.
Yeah. Oh man. So yeah, that's the Vegas story.
I love it. Well, so we've got the operations, your operations manager, you're enjoying life, but you were like falling a little bit out of love with the daily grind of running operations though, weren't you? Like,
yeah, for sure. Getting out in the market with Tommy a lot, getting out and doing things like that. I just felt I got outside of the four walls, 2 years in the warehouse, 10 years in operator, close to 10 years in warehouse. It was just start to get, it was too much. I wouldn't say it was too much, but I needed more. I was getting really burned out, and I loved being out in the market, and Tommy saw that, and, we would do a lot of things and selling in. And then I think that's when you and Tommy had the talk. We were doing a lot of changes at that time too. This is so really fast forward during that time of being operations. That was the summer that your mom was like, hey, Bud's going to come in and crush cans for us. And he's off school for the summer. I was like, all right, cool. Because we're recycling state. So we get all the empties back, and, we the cans come back in those big giant bags. They smell like absolute hell.
The worst.
There's probably 3 inches of dirty liquid on the bottom, just moldy beer. It's the worst job in the whole thing. And I'm like, oh, he's gonna hate this. So all right, cool. And it's summertime, gnats and everything else. So I set Bud up. I'm like, cool, man, this is how you do it. This is how you run the machine. You got to open these bags, dump the bag in the hopper, and then it'll crush them up in these cubes. You take those cubes off, and then you palletize them. And a whole day's worth of cans that came in from every truck, it probably took a single person, what would you say, 5 hours to crush?
It was a decent amount of time. Our can crusher was not quick. Yes.
It was not fast, no. And you don't own it. The recycling company owns it, and we lease it. So it's not like we could say, hey, we need a better can machine.
Well, we asked, and they continued to say, like, you don't have enough capacity to warrant a bigger one. And I'm like, well, like, I hate this.
And then
we need a faster one.
Then you have to take a broom handle and beat the hell out of it. So I leave Bud alone for a while, probably a couple hours, doing some other things. And I come back to check on Bud, and that mountain of cans is still there. And he's taking one can at a time, and he's shooting hoops. Give him the credit; he was making every one of them. But I'm like, hey man, we really need to get all of these done by the end of the day. He's like, all of these? Yeah, man. Because tomorrow that same amount is coming in, and we start all over.
So that was probably like 15 or 16 or something like that.
Yeah, yep. And then you went away to college, and then when you came back, and then you fit in the management role and took your hand at the wheel and started steering the ship. That's when shortly after that, we started making a lot of changes and really shaking things. I think that's when we broke our exclusivity, right? 2011. We broke our exclusivity,
like that.
brought in some other brands, started making some other changes. And then you and Tommy got to talking, and you're like, hey, you know what? I think we have two people in the opposite roles here. You know, Mike needs to be out in the market. And at that time, the assistant sales manager under Tommy, you're like, I think he's better in operations. He needs to move over into operations. So yeah, you guys approached me. At first, Tommy told me about it, and I was like, no, dude, absolutely not. And because he said, well, you come over to sales. I'm like, as a sales rep? He's like, well, yeah. I'm like, dude, so you want me to give up being a manager for the last 10 years to go be a sales rep? And so then we got to chat, and then it all really came to life. You guys,
we hatched this whole plan between Tommy and I at the inspiration of another, distributor at the time, Willie, who had flip-flopped some roles. And it was just like, to me, it was a light bulb moment that was like, oh, you can just change people's roles. We'd constantly seen people union shop, and we're very diligent. The culture of Atlas was very diligent about respecting the longevity and loyalty and service of the organization, and that there was a ladder hierarchy that you worked up. And it was just like, blew my mind. It's like, oh, you can just switch people's roles around, and like, there's nothing that they can do to stop it if you want to do it. And we was like, yeah, you just do what you want, bro. You tell me you think this is a good thing. So Tommy and I hatched this plan, and I don't remember where we were when we said it, but one of us was just like, why don't we just flip flop Brad and Mike? And it was like light bulb moment. So then we talked to my mom and dad, Greg and Kathy Sue, about it. And they were hesitant at first. And we continued to talk to them about it. It was like, this is really the best thing to do. And everybody marinated on it finally. And then you got the offer first, because it was like, hey, would you do this, or are you? And you were more open to it. And then we made the overture to Brad, and Brad was like, well, do I get a choice? And I think my response was, you do, but if you don't say yes, you're gone.
Yeah.
So you have a choice, but those are your two choices.
Yeah, I think, and that's really
Brad was your inventory coordinator.
Brad was assistant sales manager.
Yeah.
No. When I came into contact, you had a guy named, I think Brad was your inventory coordinator.
Yeah, he was operations manager.
He made the switch.
Ops manager. We also did forecasting. So inventory coordinator.
So that was Brad.
Yeah. Yep. That was Brad. He made the switch. And like, at the end of the day, it was a puzzle fit for everybody. What Brad was worried about was being downgraded in his level of importance. And he marinated on it and was like, no, you're upgraded in your level of importance. You're assistant manager versus department manager, and you're going to lead everything you were doing. You lead this, the driver organization, the warehouse organization, take over inventory management and operations from the warehouse management too. So like it's an elevated position, Brad. So, and he didn't want to lose his car either. But you had a vehicle, and it was like an easy swap of just like everything stays the same, and you just move over, and you just get different roles. But we did the switch in like a weekend, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, we did it pretty quick. It was like Friday you left in your old role, and Monday you started at your new role.
Yeah,
switched offices. And that's, because at first when Tommy first started talking to me about being, come over and be a sales rep, I'm like, yeah, it sounds super exciting, but I was the same boat as Brad. I don't want to lose my level of importance, And then when you guys came up with the switch, I'm like, well, yeah, I'm in. That sounds great. Let's do it.
Yep.
And then
it was a little bit like you did swallow your pride though too. I want to give you credit because it was from a department head. You came over to sales and you were not the department head anymore. Tommy was. You did move backwards a little bit. Now economically we kept you the same and everything else, but you were an elevated assistant team lead role, and you were more than like your normal team lead in terms of Atlas. But you did swallow your pride and make a shift in a way that not a lot of people would do. So I do want to give you credit for that, because it wasn't peer-to-peer role. Right. It wasn't like manager head of department for manager head of department.
Yeah, I think a lot of it was my mental health too, and also just trying to find something new and exciting, right? Because I was getting burned out in the four walls, and operations truly wasn't my passion. I was passionate about being out in the market and selling, and honestly, if I didn't make that switch, I probably would have ended up somewhere else shortly anyway. So to me, it was a new opportunity and not so much a downgrade.
And you were a good sport looking at it like that way too, as a opportunity to expand, what is a testament to your character. And you look at things a lot like that on a regular basis too, that this is a opportunity to learn and a challenge, and that you don't have a lot of things that you look at that are beneath you. And that's one of the things that I love about you.
And at that time too, heyday Anheuser-Busch, like my goal was to work at a distributor for as long as I could, gain as much knowledge as I could, and then go work for AB. That's what I wanted to do long term. Started back then, you had to work your way up to be a district manager.
Mm-hmm.
So started somewhere else, eventually come up to be a district manager, eventually maybe state director or something like that. That was my goal in life. So I think to me too, just gathering that experience on the sales side was more valuable to me than the title as a department.
Yeah, through sales is the only way you can get there. You can't get there through operations.
Correct. Yeah.
So you're in the sales role, you're having fun making the transition, but at the same time that you were doing this, a lot of technology around you was changing too, and the use of analytics. And you really stepped into that new role of, I was trying to get out of being the sales execution coordinator because I was doing an awful job at doing it and needed to be promoted out of doing that. You were perfect to step into it, and you kind of took on that new role that was, being manufactured from that time period to really look at information and data in a new way. So tell us about that component that you started to work on too.
Yeah, that was probably around the time. Well, actually, I was in operations when we converted route accounting systems over to Encompass, and then just learning that process, and then just being able to access the data the way that we were. I wasn't too savvy with. I think we had DBEV at the time, right?
We did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, DBEV, and I would have to go to Sandy and say, "Hey, can I have a report on this? Hey, can I have a report on this?" And then being in at the ground level with the whole Encompass integration, I learned how to run all those reports, and then I just started. Going down rabbit holes of, hey, we can do this, we can put this together, we can do that. And I think you and Tom at that point, you were asking me to run all the reports. Like, hey, how are we on this? How are we doing on that? And I would be putting them together. And then you were like, you just want to be our SEC? You just want to be in charge of this? I'm like,
can I get rid of this, please?
Yeah. I don't want this anymore. I'm like, well, I'm kind of doing all that right now. you know,
It's
and
like,
back
sounds
then,
great.
yeah, back then there wasn't anything fancy, shameless plug. Back then there wasn't anything fancy like VXP. So, you know, we're doing everything, spreadsheets, putting together trackers and all that good stuff. And I really loved it. I mean, Tommy would make fun of me and he was like, come on, man, we got to get on the market, blah, blah, blah. We got this to do and that to do. I'm like, hey, dude, I'm working on this. He's like, you're in here nerding out. You're geeking out, being a nerd. And then he started calling me the data nerd all the time. Probably where Data Mike came in, but no, I just loved tracking the numbers, looking at it from the analytics side and putting all that stuff together.
From technology, like the only thing you never did was, did you ever get certified in the shelf set program?
I never did.
That was
Nope,
the
you're
only thing
right.
you never really did, isn't it?
Yep. Yep.
That's what I thought.
We WEA standards, we had to have 2 people certified. Brad was already certified, and Tom was certified. So we just left it at that.
You just left it that way. I love it. Yep. And then we all met as us as a 3-pack. And that was probably the next evolution of when Tommy and I were talking about how we hated our PFP and the way that we paid our reps and the commission structure that we were on, and that it just had gone stale. And this was probably 2017. And we're like, but what else are we going to do? Like, what else is better than what we've got out there? And we hadn't heard anything at all. Mm-hmm. And I got an email from Gavin and was just like, how would you like to grow your GP per CE by 20 cents a case? And I wrote back, you have my attention. I'm sure Ross probably has that email somewhere still. So then we talked and we made the transition to VXP, but you were an integral part of that as part of like being there and watching it. And I don't want to talk about my role in it other than just introducing it. It was then you had to really rubber meets the road and really coach and educate and get people to take it on. So like, where did that drag you? What were you excited about with that next evolution of Mike?
Yeah. I remember the day clear when you sent Tommy and I an email and you said, hey guys, check this out and tell me your thoughts. And it was a short little video on VXP and we watched it and we're like, this is great. It sounds amazing. So that's when we made the conversion, jumped over. And then at that point, you know, somebody from VXP came, spent a week with us and it was great. Right. Really just hands-on, getting our feet wet. And I'm like, this tool is amazing. So then you're like, all right, cool. Well, that's your baby, Mike. Make it happen.
Good luck. Good Ross, luck. You ran the implementation. What was your first impressions of Mike? Do you remember any?
You know, I don't.
Ross is also sick, so we'll give him it doesn't make you mean you're unmemorable, Mikey.
Well, and back then too,
I wasn't on site the implementation.
Yeah, he wasn't.
No,
on
you didn't.
Site. He
Brian
probably
did
on the
on-site
data integration. So working with Sandy, I would imagine the most, and Brad at that point.
Oh, but I remember.
Go ahead.
I remember this was when we made a big transition on your pay, another evolution of Mikey. And we've talked about this many times in the pod, but we don't want to skip over it here. If you ever want to hear about it, you can dig into one of the old episodes. If anything that has team lead in the title, we will tell the story about how Mikey's pay went from full salary and I stole pay from him and made it variable, which was another grumpy thing that Mikey had to deal with. It was a notification rather than a recommendation. But you took that in stride as well.
Well, I wouldn't say I took it in stride right out of the gate. It took a little.
You took it in stride.
Yeah. But yeah, I had been salary since 2002. And now here we are, 2018, by the time we're really getting into VXP. And you said, I think you need to be a part of this program. You need to have some skin in the game to make this happen. And I said, no, I totally agree with you. And you said, cool. Well, we're taking X% from your base and we're putting it in VXP.
It was a good amount. It was like $5,000.
Yeah. I was like, oh, are you? Okay. Well, I don't really think that's fair because, I mean, in my mind, I'm like, I've earned this. This is my salary that I've earned. And now you're making me re-earn it. Right. That was my mindset at the time. And so we chatted about it a while. And then you said, you know what? You trust me. Let's run with this for 6 months, see how it plays out. If it's not working well, we'll readdress it. We'll come back and we'll revisit it. I'm like, all right. So we did. And 6 months went by and I was happy with the progress so far. Fast forward to the following January. And you know, we were up for increases or raises for the year. And you said, hey, I'm going to just ask everybody, do you want it in VXP at risk or do you want me to put it in your base? And I said, put it all in VXP. And your face was like, what? And I was like, yeah, because I made more money last year by having
It was
that.
a bone of contention for you when we made this switch, and it was $5,000 from your base. My memory is $5,000 from your base, and then I think I layered on another $3,000 to like try to make the sour apple taste a little better as an opportunity. That was one of the things that Ross helped me do. Like, hey, if you're going to steal from him, try to make it a little better by giving him a little bit bigger opportunity. So if he misses, at least he's back whole with where he was at on a salary basis. So you can at least, save face with that, bud. You might not look like such an asshole.
Thanks, Ross. Bud would not have done that on his own.
Probably not. They would not have done that on his own.
They would never do anything like that. So thanks, Ross. But yeah, that's kind of where that went. And then I continued because then you're like, well, what's going on? I go, it is so much more. It's easier for me to make more money having that dollars at risk in VXP than it is to come and ask you for a raise every year. So let's just do it. If anything comes in there, right into VXP. And the majority of our sales reps did the same thing too after that first year. But yeah, and then so now here we are with VXP. We're launching, and I remember going, well, we have to set targets now. How do we set these goals? And you're like, you got to figure that out. I don't know. Just come up with a target for everybody. And I'm like, oh shit. Well, what's everybody else doing? So you gave me phone numbers for other clients, and we would call them up and like, hey, how are you setting goals? And at that point, I think I talked to like maybe 3 or 4 other clients, and they were doing it 3 or 4 different ways. So I took a little piece of each and every one of them, came up with a spreadsheet to really just kind of set accurate goals. And to me, selling day adjustment was super important. So we worked in selling day adjustment because not all months are treated equal. And then kind of took the lead on that, which turned out to be a pretty good thing because once we had accurate goals, then we really had the engagement from our sales reps too. And for me, being able to say, yeah, I'm doing this. I know where these goals are coming from. I know how we got here. Went a long way too.
And that was a big deal because you really like, these are the things that like I couldn't have done all on my own around like owning the changes. And that's one of the things that, your character is that change has been a part of you for a long time, and that you've always done a really good job of owning the change, that either part of the making the changes and wanting to make the changes or coping with the changes that have been requested and really owning them in a good way to make them the most positive. That's one of the things I love about working with you as well too.
Thanks, bud.
You're welcome, Mikey. You're welcome.
Is this my employee review? Is this my review for the year?
No, we do those weekly. We don't wait to do those yearly.
Yeah. So from there, kind of really just with VXP, I think we just kind of really took the reins in our hands and went away with it. And we were doing as a company, as a sales organization, we were doing really well with it. So I think we started to get a little bit closer with Ross and Gavin and the rest of the team and working with them a little bit more. And then I don't really remember, I'll let you take us down the road of how I got a little bit more actively involved on the VXP side when I was still at Atlas.
Well, I shipped you off to a couple on sites because we needed the help. We needed somebody who actually knew what they were doing.
There was Vegas too.
Yeah.
But you came to me and you said, hey, we've got a client and I really think you should go work with them for a week. How do you feel about taking the week off, taking, week's vacation here, and we'll ship you off and you go work with them and their sales team in the market? And I was like, yeah, heck yeah, let's do it. And I came home from that going, wow, this is really cool. I just loved being out in the market with a different team, sharing experiences and learning from them as they're learning from me. And I was like, hey, if anything like that ever comes up again, I'd be more than willing to jump on a plane and go visit somebody else.
And Ross, that was the first time you worked with Mikey one-on-one too.
No, the first time I worked with him one-on-one was Vegas.
Oh, you guys were at UK together.
Yeah, I met you in Louisiana.
I thought UK was with Brad.
And
you
me.
did. You.
Were the 3 of us there?
Yep. 3 of you went. Yep.
Yeah, because I remember Brad, I was in the hotel bar because I landed first.
Now I remember you and I were trying to figure out the FPL thing at the hotel. We're like, what the heck?
I was at the airport bar and then Brad came up and he was like, you seen Ross yet? I'm like, I don't even know who I'm looking for. I've never seen Ross face to face. I've talked to him, but like I've never seen him face to face because we really didn't do conference calls back then. It wasn't like a whole lot of Zoom stuff going on. So yeah, that's when I first met you. And then we worked that whole week, day and night, working on their FPL and everything else.
Yeah, I love it. It was awesome. Now, the next big major milestone, because you continue to work with VXP, kind of moonlighting from here and there, your goal sheet ultimately evolved into the current iteration of the goal sheet that we still run today here at VXP. Yours was the mothership of the starting that then has, gone through a handful of overhauls and iterations with yourself, with Maria and clients along the way. But the next big turning point was that I announced to the crew that we're selling Atlas Sales.
Yeah. Yeah, that was huge. 2023, and coming up about a month prior to you telling, because you told us before the rest of the team, about a month early, and leading into those days, we all, we could smell what was cooking in the kitchen. And I asked you a couple times, I'm like, hey man, what's going on? Like, are we selling? And you're like, everything's gonna be fine, Mikey. And that was your answer. And I was like, oh shit. So then I started wrapping my head around, like, all right, well, what's this mean for me? I need to have a game plan. I'm not somebody that doesn't like to have a game plan. I need to have some options, something already thought out. I'm an overthinker. Like, I need to have a plan. So I already started gathering a couple plans in the background, and then yeah, you pulled me in for a private meeting, and you said, hey, yep, we are selling, and this is the date. And I'm like, all right, well, what's that mean? And you're like, I honestly don't know. The buyer, the new company will run a interview process. I don't know what they're going to need and all that other good stuff. So immediately I started the job search, make sure my resume was tight, started the job search, but I had to sign an NDA. So I couldn't really start applying and actively, going after there, but I was ready to pull the trigger. And the minute that we announced it to the entire company, I applied for a couple different jobs. The one I really wanted was at Kellogg cereal, which is headquartered right around the corner from our old warehouse, about 20 minutes from my house. And I know a lot of people that work there for the corporate office, and they absolutely loved it. Everybody that works there had nothing bad to say about them, and they'd all been there for a while. So I'm like, all right, I think that's going to be a good move for me. So I applied there, and then that's when you guys took me to Vegas in October, and you're like, come on out to Vegas, one last thing, let's sell some VXP, meet some people, shake some hands.
You're still on the Atlas payroll. We hadn't closed the deal. That was a week before we closed the deal.
Yep. So I did, and we were hanging out there, and that's when I got a call for an interview, and it was the first morning in Vegas. It was like an 8 a.m. interview. First morning in Vegas. So I took the interview from there.
5 a.m. Vegas time.
Yeah, it was freaking early, man. And I felt like I went pretty good. So then, and time went on, and I didn't hear anything. And then I ended up accepting a position at the people that bought us out as a sales rep. Went there and was working as a sales rep. And then I got the call from Kellogg's that I got that position. So I jumped over and went there and absolutely loved it. I was in charge of the chains, for here, the larger chain team. So Walmart, Kroger, Meijer, which is a local grocery chain here, Jewel, for Southern Michigan and Northern Indiana. So Kellogg's, it's warehouse to back room. So there was no selling really involved. It was just meeting, talking. I mean, there's sales involved, but you're not there writing an order. And I loved it. And you would call me and you would check in like, hey, man, how's Kellogg's doing? I'm like, oh, it's great, man. I love you. Like, all right, yeah, you feeling good? All right. Well, just kind of feeling you out. I'm like, yeah. And probably a few weeks into that's when I got another call from Bud, and he said, hey, what are you doing Friday? Do you want to jump on a Zoom call with Ross and I? And I was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. So I jumped on that Zoom call, and then you guys were like, hey, I think we really, we have a full-time position that we're looking to fill, and
came prepared with an offer.
Yeah, you actually had the offer and everything written up. And I remember going, damn it, Bud, I've only been at this job for like 3 weeks. Can you even give me a minute to see how much I like it?
Nope.
And you're like, no.
You might stay if I give you too much longer.
But that was, then I had to think about that for a while, come back, and, Jamie and I talked about it. And
I mean, at that point, VXP is such a much bigger, more stable company at this point. At that point, we were sticking our necks out because we weren't sure.
Yeah.
You were sticking your necks out. We were telling you you're sticking your neck out, too.
And Mike was worried, too. It's like, well, how do I know you guys are going to make it?
Ross and I were like, don't know. Who knows?
Yep. Bud Bud shared the sales plan and laid that all out. And, and I came back and I said, all right, well, the biggest thing was the travel too, right? I'm on the road a lot. So family with 2 kids and a wife, kids that are out of district that have to be driven to and from school every single day, sporting events, all those things, right? There's the family dynamics that come in there. Kellogg's, I'm home every single night. And in big Fortune 500 company, right? So there were some talks that needed to happen. And I remember a couple times we're talking about it, and Jamie just looked at me and she's like, why are you even still thinking about this? She's like, you know where your heart is. You know where your passion is. You know exactly what you want to do. So why are you thinking about it? And why are we talking about it? I'm like, you're right. Yep. So here I am. And the rest of the story lives happily ever after.
You got to see the world.
Yeah, get to see.
I remember your first week and this is why, we didn't hire, or we did not interview anybody else. We didn't even put the job posting out there. Ross and I were both aligned with that Mikey is the only solution. If we don't get Mikey, we'll figure out another one, but we're just going to stay focused on getting Mike as the solution because we trusted you and we knew that we could put you in front of a client today and could run an implementation today and would be, hold your own with a leadership team today. We didn't have to do any training. We didn't have to do any coaching. We didn't have to do any micromanagement or babysitting of you that, because we don't do any of that at our organization. And we just throw you out there. And we did. We were like, cool, your first week is going to be at this wholesaler and we're just going to go out and have fun. And that's exactly what we did.
Yeah. Yep. And I got off the plane and I didn't even have a car. So you were like, Uber here. You gave me an address. And here we are sitting with the senior leadership team at lunch and you introduced me like, all right, yep, this is Mikey's first day on the job. You're going with him. You're going with him.
Good luck. The good thing is that this is Mikey's like 70th day on the job. It's just his first official day.
Yeah. And it was an omen. It was a great sign because that week, one of the lunches, it might've been the second day. So second full-time day is when you got a call with a large deal that you had been working on for a while. With a good sized client, and you're like, hey, we got the deal. And I'm like, this is a sign. I'm right where I need to be.
That's right.
Where was it on site? Was that in the Midwest? I'm thinking of
Oklahoma.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of.
Yep. Now, Mikey, you are doing killer. So today's role, you're director of customer success at VXP. You're working with distributors every day, doing everything that you came to love, I think, and everything that you've really enjoyed. And that's why you're so good at what you're doing and why clients love what you're doing too. So I hope that everybody enjoyed the conversation of getting to know Mike a little bit better. The last thing we need to do, Mike, is shirt off, shirt off, shirt off, shirt off.
Why do you want my shirt off, bud?
Shirt off. Yeah, so Mikey has a very, very interesting, and he's a very passionate Voodoo Ranger fan. And he has a tattoo on his shoulder. Well, I mean, you already knows that. He has a tattoo on his right shoulder, which is incredible. So show the crowd, Mikey. For those of you on the YouTube, Mikey's not taking his shirt off, unfortunately.
It's cold.
But he is pulling his quarter zip up and showing off his sleeve. That is the Voodoo guy, or is that just a Ranger guy?
It's just the Ranger guy. So
just the Ranger.
The story on the tattoo is I've always loved that skeleton, right? I don't drink a whole lot of Voodoo Ranger. It's a great beer, but it kicks me in the ass. Everybody out there knows what my brand of choice is, but I love that skeleton. Since the day that they switched the branding, I just always loved that skeleton. So I had drawn out a whole sleeve that I wanted for this arm. Well, not really. I didn't really draw it out because I'm not an artist, but I had all these ideas and I took it to my tattoo artist and I'm like, hey, put all this in one sleeve. And one portion of it was that Ranger guy. And he was probably supposed to be about that big with a bunch of other stuff going on. And my tattoo artist is the kind of guy that like, hey, I'm the artist. You bring me the idea and the inspiration. I will draw it. And then I'm going to put it on you when you come here. We're not really going back and redoing a bunch if you want size things or this and that. So I showed up and he goes, hey, I made a few changes and I think you're going to love it. And this was the change that he made. He goes, that skeleton is so badass. Your whole arm needs to be that skeleton. And I was like, let's do it, man.
You gotta love it.
Yep.
Gotta love it. The New Belgium guys used to love that. That was awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. Well, I think for us, like, it's a fun opportunity to work with you, Mike, because you're so passionate and obsessed with what the industry is and how that it works, that really comes out in your work every day. comes out in the longevity of how long you've been committed to the industry as well too, and all the history and knowledge that you carry with it, because you're running what now, 26, 27 years of knowledge at this point. And that's the fun thing of working with somebody like you, is that you got a lot of knowledge, but you're always willing to learn something new as well too, and wanting to grow and wanting the next challenge. And when people work with you, or when people run into you, or when people, spend time with you, they always learn something new. And the number one thing you always say is, I learned so much too. Every onsite you come back and you talk about how much you've learned as well. And that is always awesome to hear.
Super true.
Again, another testament to your character and what kind of person you are to work with.
Well, thanks for fluffing my feather there.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it.
Blowing some smoke up your ass.
Yeah. No,
we don't get to blow smoke up Mike's ass enough.
Yeah. Super true though. Like that's why I'm passionate about this industry. Like you always say, we don't do it because it's a job. We don't do it because this is our career. We're passionate about it. We're obsessed with it. And being able to still continue to learn and do the things that I used to do, and take deep data dives and help, distributors, but not have to answer to one single supplier every day, is a beautiful thing. And it's just keeps me motivated every day.
Love it. Well, if you like and you're enjoying this and listening to the podcast, please continue to share it with a friend. If you got any questions for Mikey, you can hit us up at info@vxptech.com. That's info@vxptech.com. We'll be back again next week with another episode. Hope you all enjoyed the origin story of Mikey. Boys, thanks for joining us today. Mikey, thanks for talking us through everything, and cheers.
Cheers.